Dr. Minji Park stared at the massive screen in front of her. Red dots covered the star map like drops of blood. Each red dot meant the same thing, another alien species that refused to talk to humans. She counted them again, even though she knew the number by heart. 73 different alien races. 73 rejections. Director Park, we have another one, called out Lieutenant Siakmin Lee from his desk. His voice sounded tired. They were all tired these days. The crystal beings on that planet near Kepler just turned their whole world away from us. Like they don't even want to look at our ships. Minji rubbed her forehead. The headache that lived there never seemed to go away anymore. 3 years. 3 whole years since humans had figured out how to travel faster than light. 3 years of flying to distant stars with hope in their hearts and friendly messages ready to send. 3 years of watching every single alien civilization run away from them like they were monsters. The communication room buzzed with quiet activity. Dozens of people sat at glowing screens, trying to make sense of alien signals. They had learned so much about the galaxy in such a short time. The universe was full of life, more than they had ever dreamed possible. Great trading ships moved between star systems. Huge structures floated in space that were bigger than Earth's moon. Songs that traveled through space itself, so beautiful that human listeners cried when they heard them. But the moment humans appeared anywhere, everything stopped. The trading stopped. The building stopped. Even the singing stopped. Captain Hyun-woo Kim's face appeared on the main screen. He was calling from his ship, the New Soul, somewhere near the star Vega. Director, the same thing happened here. We got close to that colony of singers, you know, the ones that make those incredible sounds? The second they detected our ship, they went completely quiet. All of them. Just stopped singing. Minji looked at the tactical display. It showed the positions of thousands of alien ships across this part of the galaxy. As she watched, many of the ships began moving away from human territory. Not just a few ships, entire fleets. Whole civilizations packing up and leaving rather than risk meeting humans. Sir, Siakmin spoke up again, his young face worried. I'm seeing major fleet movements in the Centauri area. It looks like the Zephyrians are abandoning their colonies. All of them. They're just leaving everything behind. The Zephyrians were traders. They had built their whole civilization around buying and selling goods between different worlds. Their trade routes connected hundreds of star systems. But now they were giving up colonies they had spent decades building, just to stay away from humans. Run a deep scan on all the alien communications we've picked up, Minji ordered. Everything we've recorded. There has to be something in their messages that explains why they're all so afraid of us. Her team worked through the night. The communication room never really slept anymore. There were always people trying to crack alien languages, always someone listening to the radio waves that traveled between distant worlds. They had become very good at understanding alien technology. Their computers could now translate many alien languages, at least the simple ones. But understanding the words was different from understanding the meaning. Why would advanced civilizations, some of them thousands of years older than human civilization, be so terrified of a species that had only just learned to leave their home planet? Called out Dr. Jiwon Yo from the language section. I think I'm starting to see patterns in their communications. The same words keep appearing in different languages. But the translation computer is having trouble with them. They seem to be very old words, maybe from ancient languages. Minji walked over to look at Jiwon's screen. Lists of alien text scrolled by, with computer translations appearing next to them. Most of it was routine communication, reports about trade routes, weather on different planets, family messages between worlds. Normal, everyday talk between normal, everyday people living their normal, everyday lives across the galaxy. But some messages were different. These ones made the aliens who sent them sound scared. Really scared. They talked about the return and the awakening and 50,000 cycles of darkness ending. They mentioned something called the Devourers and the Star Death. Keep working on those translations, Minji told Jiwon. Whatever they're talking about, it's connected to us. It has to be. She looked back at the star map with all its red dots. Somewhere out there in the dark between stars, entire civilizations were running away from humanity. Not because humans had done anything wrong, but because of something they thought humans might do. Something so terrible that species would abandon their homes rather than risk contact. The worst part was not knowing. Were humans really dangerous in some way they didn't understand? Had their ancestors done something horrible that the rest of the galaxy remembered? Or was this all just a terrible mistake, a case of mistaken identity that was keeping humanity alone in a universe full of potential friends? As dawn broke over the communication center, Minji stared at the red dots on her screen and wondered what secrets the alien messages would reveal. She had a feeling that the truth, when it came, would change everything humans thought they knew about themselves. Dr. Jiwon-yo's hands shook as she stared at her computer screen. The translation program had been running for 3 days straight, breaking down the alien messages piece by piece. What she saw now made her stomach feel sick. "Director Park," she called out, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. She tried again, louder this time. "Director Park, you need to see this right now." Minji hurried over to Jiwon's desk. The young woman's face had gone completely pale. On her screen, translated text appeared in neat rows. The same phrases showed up over and over again, translated from dozens of different alien languages. "The Devourers return. The Star Death comes again. 50,000 cycles of peace ending now. What does it mean?" Minji asked, though part of her already feared the answer. Before Jiwon could respond, Captain Hyun-woo Kim's face appeared on the main communication screen. He looked tired and worried. "Minji, my team just finished checking those dead planets in the Barnard star system. You're not going to like what we found." The image on the screen changed to show a rocky, lifeless world. It should have been covered in oceans and forests. Instead, it looked like a dried-up husk. "This planet once had billions of living things on it," Hyun-woo explained. "Plants, animals, maybe even intelligent life. But something drained it completely. Not just the surface life, the planet's core is empty too. Every bit of energy that once existed here is just gone." Lieutenant Commander Soyeon Han stepped into view next to Hyun-woo. She held a data pad with numbers and charts on it. "We found the same thing on 37 different worlds across 4 parts of the galaxy. Whatever did this was very organized about it. They didn't just destroy these planets by accident. They systematically took every form of energy from them and left nothing behind." "When did this happen?" Minji asked, though she was starting to guess the answer. "The dating shows it was about 50,000 years ago," Soyeon replied. "Maybe a little less." Then suddenly, it all stopped. No more dead planets after that date. Whatever was doing this just disappeared. Jiwon had been working frantically at her computer while they talked. Now she had more translations ready. "Director, I've cracked more of their ancient records. They have detailed descriptions of the beings that did this. They called them the Devourers." "And Director?" She paused, looking sick. "The descriptions match humans perfectly." The translated records painted a picture that made everyone in the room go quiet. The aliens described creatures that looked exactly like humans: 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, the same basic body shape. But these creatures had abilities that were impossible to imagine. They could survive in the vacuum of space. They could drain the life force from entire forests just by touching a single tree. They could somehow feed on the energy that held planets together. According to these records, Jiwon continued, reading from her screen, the Devourers would arrive at a star system in ships that looked almost organic. They would land on planets and begin feeding. First on the plants and animals, then on the planet itself. They could drain a world completely in just a few years. Captain Hyun-woo's voice came through the speakers again. "Minji, we found something else. There are ruins on these dead planets. Not alien ruins, human ruins. Or at least, they look exactly like the kind of buildings humans would make. The same architectural patterns, the same proportions. Even some of the symbols look like ancient human writing." The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. Every piece of information pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The aliens weren't running from humans because they thought humans might be dangerous. They were running because they knew humans were dangerous. Their ancestors had survived the last time humans had come to the galaxy, and they remembered. "But how is that possible?" asked Siakman from his desk. "Humans have never left Earth before. Our whole recorded history shows that we've been stuck on one planet for our entire existence. We only invented space flight 100 years ago." Dr. Soyeon had an answer for that, but it wasn't a good one. What if our recorded history is wrong? What if humans have been to space before, but somehow lost all memory of it? These ruins, these dead planets, they're proof that beings identical to humans were once capable of traveling between stars and doing things we can't even imagine. The room fell silent as everyone tried to process what this meant. If the aliens were right, then humans weren't innocent explorers making first contact with the galaxy. They were the return of something that had once been the most feared force in known space. "The genetic scans," Minji said suddenly. "That's why they're so afraid. They've been scanning our DNA from long range, comparing it to their records of the Devourers. And we match. More translated messages kept appearing on Jiwon's screen. Ancient warnings passed down through 50,000 years of alien civilization. When the two arms return to the void, all worlds must flee. The star devourers sleep, but they do not die. Watch the empty places between stars, for from there comes the ending of all things. Humanity had spent 3 years wondering why the galaxy feared them. Now they knew. The question was no longer why the aliens ran away. The question was whether they were right to run, and whether the monsters from their ancient nightmares were really gone, or just sleeping inside every human being. Mingyu Park walked into the plant-growing room at New Busan Colony expecting to see the usual small green shoots. Instead, he found himself staring at massive trees that reached the ceiling. Yesterday, these had been tiny seedlings barely poking out of the soil. Now they were full-grown plants with thick trunks and leaves that seemed to glow with their own light. "This isn't possible," he whispered, touching one of the tree trunks. The bark felt warm, almost like it was alive in a way that normal plants weren't. As his hand made contact, he felt a strange tingling sensation run up his arm. Dr. Yoonji Kim received Mingyu's emergency call within minutes. As the colony's doctor, she had seen many strange things since humans began living on other planets. But nothing like this. When she arrived at the growing room, she found Mingyu sitting on the floor, staring at his hands. "Dr. Kim," he said without looking up. "Something's wrong with me. Ever since I touched that tree, I can feel things. Living things. I can sense every plant in this room, every bug crawling in the soil. And I'm hungry for something I can't explain." Yoonji ran every medical test she knew how to do. Mingyu's body temperature was higher than normal. His heart was beating stronger and faster than any human heart should be able to beat. Most strange of all, her energy scanners showed that he was somehow absorbing power from everything around him. "I need to contact Earth immediately," she told Mingyu. "You're not the first person this has happened to." Reports were coming in from human colonies across the galaxy. On Mars Colony, a woman named Yuna Lim had walked outside without a spacesuit and survived for an hour in the deadly thin atmosphere. On Europa Station, Donghyun Choi had somehow fixed a broken power generator just by placing his hands on it, as if his body could channel electricity. Dr. Minho Lee worked in his laboratory on Earth, studying blood samples sent from the colonies. What he found in human DNA made him call Director Park immediately. "Minji, we have a serious problem. There are genetic sequences in human DNA that are turning themselves on. These aren't normal human genes. There's something else, something that was sleeping until now." "What do you mean, sleeping?" Minji asked during their video call. "I mean someone or something put these genes into human DNA a long time ago, but designed them to stay turned off. Now they're activating, and they're giving people abilities that shouldn't exist. It's like there's a whole other species hidden inside every human being, waiting to wake up." The breakthrough came when Captain Hyun-woo Kim found an old human spaceship floating in empty space between the stars. The ship was clearly built by humans. The writing on the walls was in Korean and other Earth languages. But the technology was far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. "The ship's computer is still working," Hyun-woo reported as he and his team explored the vessel. "The date stamps on the files show this ship is 52,000 years old. But that's impossible. Humans weren't even farming 52,000 years ago, let alone building spaceships." The ship's records told an incredible and terrifying story. Recordings made by humans who called themselves things like Commander Jae-hyun Lee and Admiral Sumin Choi. But these humans could do things that modern humans couldn't imagine. One recording showed a woman standing in the vacuum of space without a suit, talking calmly into a camera. "Day 15 of the feeding operation," she said. "We've drained 3 more planets in this system. The hunger is getting stronger. Some of the crew are starting to lose themselves to it." Another recording was even worse. A man demonstrated how he could kill a potted plant just by looking at it, somehow sucking all the life out of it in seconds. "The power keeps growing," he explained. "At first, we could only take energy from small things. Now we can drain entire forests. Soon, we'll be able to feed on planets themselves." The final recording was made by someone who sounded scared and desperate. "My name is Commander Jae-hyun Lee, and I may be the last rational human left in this fleet. The others have given in completely to the hunger. They're not human anymore, they're just walking appetites that consume everything they touch." His voice shook as he continued. "We've become monsters. We can feel the life force of every living thing in the galaxy, and all we want to do is take it, consume it, make it part of ourselves. We've destroyed hundreds of worlds. Killed billions of innocent creatures. and we can't stop. As Hyun-woo played these recordings for the people on Earth, more colonists across human space began showing the same strange abilities. People who could survive in deadly environments. People who seemed to drain energy from everything around them. People who reported feeling an overwhelming hunger for something they couldn't name. We're not just similar to the Devourers, Minji realized with growing horror. We are the Devourers. Somehow, someway, we're the same species that destroyed all those worlds 50,000 years ago. The ancient recordings had mentioned something about humans being reduced and made to forget. It seemed that long ago, something had stripped humans of their terrible abilities and erased their memories, leaving them as simple creatures on a single planet. But now the hidden power was waking up again, and with it came the same deadly hunger that had once consumed galaxies. The question was no longer whether humans were dangerous. The question was whether they could stop themselves before they became the monsters they used to be. Dong-hyun Choi walked through the busy streets of Neo-Seoul, trying to ignore the strange feeling growing inside his chest. It felt like hunger, but not for food. It was hunger for something else, something he couldn't name. As he passed a row of shops, every electronic device in the windows suddenly went dark. Phone screens turned black. Computer displays died. Even the electric lights flickered and went out. People stopped and stared at their dead devices, confused and worried. But Dong-hyun kept walking, feeling somehow stronger and more energetic than he had ever felt in his life. He didn't understand what was happening, but part of him didn't want it to stop. On Mars Colony, Yuna Lim stood outside the protective dome without any breathing equipment. The thin, poisonous air that would kill a normal human in minutes didn't bother her at all. She breathed it in deeply, feeling perfectly comfortable. When the colony alarm started ringing and people came running to save her, she just smiled and walked back inside on her own. "I don't need the dome anymore," she told the frightened colonists. "I can feel Mars accepting me. The planet wants to share its energy with me." Reports like this came in from every human settlement in space. People were changing, becoming something more than human. And many of them liked what they were becoming. Dr. Taehyung Song was one of the first to change completely. When Dr. Yoonji Kim examined him, he tried to explain what it felt like. "It's not just power," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "It's understanding. I can feel the life force of everything around me. The trees outside, the insects in the walls, even the tiny bacteria in the air. And I can take their energy, make it part of myself. It feels amazing." "But doesn't that kill the living things you take from?" Dr. Kim asked. Taehyung shrugged. "They're just energy. Energy that belongs to stronger beings like us. It's natural for the powerful to consume the weak." His words made Dr. Kim feel cold with fear. This wasn't just about new abilities. The changed humans were starting to think differently, to see other living things as food rather than as fellow creatures deserving of life. Director Minji Park called emergency meetings with leaders from every human world. But many of those leaders were changing too, and their new attitudes made cooperation difficult. "Why should we fight this transformation?" demanded Jihoon Baek, who had become the spokesperson for a growing group of changed humans. "For the first time in human history, we have real power. We don't have to be weak anymore. We don't have to fear death or disease or the hostility of space itself. Because we're becoming the monsters that destroyed hundreds of worlds," Minji argued. "The aliens are afraid of us for good reason. We're turning into the same creatures that once killed entire civilizations." But Jihoon and his followers didn't see it that way. "So what if we're powerful? So what if we can take energy from other living things? That just means we're superior. The galaxy should fear us. We're meant to be the dominant species." Every day, more humans joined Jihoon's movement. The promise of incredible power was hard to resist, especially when that power felt so good to use. The changed humans reported feeling stronger, smarter, and more alive than they had ever felt as ordinary humans. Meanwhile, Captain Hyun-woo Kim made one last desperate search through the ancient human ruins. In the wreckage of what had once been a mighty fleet, he found a sealed message vault that had somehow survived for 50,000 years. The message inside was recorded by a woman who called herself Admiral Sumin Choi. She looked human, but her eyes held a sadness that seemed to go on forever. "To our children, if children we may have," she began, "we are leaving you this choice because we no longer have the strength to make it ourselves." The recording explained that the ancient humans had built genetic locks into human DNA before their civilization fell. These locks could permanently shut off the devourer abilities, but using them would be dangerous and possibly deadly to anyone who had already transformed. "The power we gained came with a terrible cost," Admiral Choi continued. "With each world we consumed, we lost more of what made us human. We stopped caring about other living things. We stopped feeling love or compassion or even basic kindness. All that mattered was feeding our hunger for more power. The recording included technical instructions for activating the genetic locks. But Admiral Choi warned that the choice had to be made quickly. Once the transformation is complete, the hunger becomes too strong to resist. The changed humans will lose the ability to choose restraint over power. As Hyun-woo transmitted these findings back to Earth, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. Massive alien fleets were moving toward human space from every direction. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species, all heading for Earth and the human colonies. Their message was simple and clear: surrender the transformed humans for execution, or watch all human worlds burn. The galactic community had made their decision. They would not allow the Devourers to rise again, even if it meant committing genocide against the entire human species. The choice that had destroyed humanity 50,000 years ago was coming again. This time, though, they had advance warning. The question was whether they were strong enough to choose differently, or whether the hunger growing inside them was already too powerful to resist. The alien ships filled the space around Earth like angry stars. Thousands of vessels from dozens of different species, all pointing their weapons at the small blue planet that had once seemed so safe. Director Minji Park stood in the underground command center beneath Mount Fuji, watching the tactical displays with a mixture of terror and determination. "They're giving us 1 hour," reported Captain Hyun-woo Kim from his position near the alien fleet. His voice crackled through the communication system. 1 hour to hand over all the transformed humans for execution, or they start shooting. In the command center, the remaining human leaders argued desperately about what to do. General Sang-woo Park, whose eyes now glowed with the same strange light as the other transformed humans, slammed his fist on the table. "We should fight them," he said, his voice carrying an odd harmony that hadn't been there before. "The transformed humans have power these aliens can't imagine. We could destroy their entire fleet and show them who the real masters of this galaxy are." Dr. Minho Lee shook his head, spreading his research papers across the table. "The genetic locks are still functional. We could activate them and permanently cut off humanity's connection to the Devourer abilities. But everyone who's already transformed would probably die in the process. And we'd lose technologies that could make us gods," General Park added with hunger in his voice. Minji looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Some still looked human, worried and afraid as any normal person would be when facing extinction. Others had the bright, eager expressions of the transformed, thinking only of the power they might gain or lose. Outside the command center, in cities across Earth and on human colonies throughout space, the transformed humans were gathering. Some could now survive in the vacuum of space without any protection. Others had learned to drain energy directly from starlight itself. The hunger that had once driven their ancestors to destroy entire star systems was awakening in thousands of human minds. "Minji," Heinwa's voice came through the speakers again. "Some of the transformed humans up here are talking about attacking the alien fleet on their own. They think they're strong enough to win." The weight of the entire human species' survival pressed down on everyone in the command center. They could fight, using their growing powers to defeat the aliens but becoming the monsters the galaxy feared. They could surrender, allowing the executions and accepting permanent defeat. Or they could choose the path their ancestors had been too corrupted to take. Minji stood up slowly, her decision becoming clear. "Open channels to every human settlement, every ship, every colony in space. I want to talk to our entire species." Her words reached every human being alive, from the space stations orbiting distant stars to the underground colonies on hostile worlds. Both transformed and normal humans stopped what they were doing to listen. "We are the children of monsters," she began, her voice steady despite her fear. "But we don't have to be monsters ourselves. Yes, we have the power to consume worlds. Yes, we could probably defeat the alien fleet and make the galaxy bow to us. But we also have something our ancestors lost, the power to choose restraint over dominance." The response was immediate and divided. Many of the transformed humans reacted with anger. Their new abilities made them feel invincible, superior to all other forms of life. The idea of giving up that power seemed like madness. "Why should we make ourselves weak again?" demanded Jihoon Beck from his position on Mars colony. "We're finally becoming what we were meant to be. We're finally strong enough to take our rightful place as rulers of the galaxy." But other voices spoke up too. Minyu Park, despite his transformation, remembered the fear in Dr. Kim's eyes when he had described his hunger for living energy. Una Lim thought about the colonists who had risked their lives to save her when they thought she was in danger on Mars's surface. Maybe being strong isn't about how much power we have, said Dr. Ti Hyung Song, his voice broadcast from Europa Station. Maybe it's about choosing not to use that power to hurt others. The debate raged across human space for precious minutes while the alien deadline approached. But gradually, more voices joined Minji's side. Humans who remembered what it felt like to love, to care about others, to value life beyond their own needs. We activate the genetic locks, Minji announced. All of them. We choose to remain human rather than become gods who devour everything they touch. The process began simultaneously across all human settlements. Ancient genetic sequences triggered, severing the connection between human consciousness and cosmic power. The transformed humans convulsed as abilities that had made them nearly immortal were stripped away. Some survived the process. Others, whose bodies had become too dependent on cosmic energy, died as their enhanced systems shut down. But as the genetic locks clicked into place, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. The alien fleet, prepared for either total war or unconditional surrender, instead received a simple message broadcast on all frequencies. We remember what we were. We choose what we will be. The stars turned away, but we're reaching out as friends, not as devourers. For long moments, space remained silent. Then, from the flagship of the Zephyrian Collective, came a single word translated into human language, received. It was the first word of friendship the galaxy had spoken to humanity in 50,000 years.